Enrique.
Hey Peter, how are you? Good morning or evening, afternoon, whatever time you guys are watching this.
That's when you guys watching. I'm doing very well. I was just in the deep reflection over the weekend thinking if IKEA using the beam or not, but that was just completely different topic. So do you think they're using beam for the, can I download some beam objects from IKEA side if I wish to get some elements to my house?
I don't know really, but it could be a good point. At least using the visual or virtual reality to design your own house, that would be great, right?
Yeah, let's try to think about it. I think I like the challenging them a little bit with the way how they just drive the market. What are we
Fantastic. So
doing?
very good example with IKEA, because with IKEA you build houses, and with houses are in buildings. And today we're going to talk about smart buildings. We're going beyond BIM, and we are expanding our knowledge to move forward. And today we have a specialist here from the UK to talk about mostly smart buildings, how technology, not only BIM, is going beyond, can help to that. So no more overdue. Let's welcome Matthew Marson to the BIM Cafe.
Yeah.
Hello, Matthew.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you thank you for being with us.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Marson, to come over to our BIM Cafe and decide to spend a few minutes with us discussing about smart buildings, BIM, technology, anything. We want to make the construction work more efficient with the technology. So that we want to have a tagline here, it will be that one, right?
Exactly.
Fantastic. Well, so let's show our guests a bit of the structure for the interview that we have prepared today. The interview with Matthew Marson. He's an expert on smart buildings, and we're going to discuss, as I said, mostly about that, but at the end we will see where the conversation goes as usually. And this is more or less the draft we have prepared: the data analysis, the mass building, and talking about the no-code and low-code processes. Something we already discussed, if you remember, with our colleagues Lubomir as well, and a few guests that happened to the BIM Cafe recently. So first of all, Matthew, we're going to give you the floor. Let me lower a bit down the music so there is no distractions, and I will give you the floor, as I said, to introduce yourself to our audience.
Yeah, okay, cool. Thank you. So Matthew, based in London. I work at JLL Technologies, where I'm the managing director of the advisory practice in Europe, Middle East and Africa. And we essentially support our clients, who are typically Fortune 500 type companies, with how they can use technology across their portfolios in specific buildings, or perhaps at the city scale if they're trying to do something like a smart city. So yeah, I'm very lucky with all of the kind of cool projects and things that I get to work on. I started my career having trained as a engineer and architect before going to work at Accenture, which is probably where I learned technology and got to work on all sorts of really fun projects there, before going to set up the Smart Places practice at WSP. And then just after that, as at Arcadis, as the global market sector leader for technology. So I've been very privileged with all of the cool things that I've got to work on in the past.
You're blessed.
Fantastic.
That was a really interesting career. So let's just hit our topic of the year, of the century. I think the building information modeling and how we can transform the industry. That's what I'm just thinking from the couple of years. Slow moving. Again, we need just to get some boost there somehow.
Yeah, I think so. And you know what, I'll just say kind of up front, I'm not sure if I'm convinced about BIM. It just feels like kind of a digital version of draftsmanship, right? Like, it totally makes sense if you need some drawings, doing some information storing, particularly sort of meta things about elements within a building. But I don't know if it's a kind of holy grail. Tell me I'm wrong, I don't know.
No, I think I completely agree. I think the beam, when we will succeed with beam, it will be completely invisible. So just you will not see it. It's just like you don't even think about why you have which way you have a water at home, and how is electricity coming. You don't even think about it, right? But it's just the huge infrastructure behind which is supporting all of these things. Which we learned over the last winter, electricity and the support grids, etc. How you trade it. Wow. So the beam for me is the same thing, right? I'm just we're talking about it because we need to start to pushing towards the transformation. But when it will be there, nobody will see it, I think. Wow.
And it's in a process of redefinition itself, I think, right? At the beginning, BIM arrived at the beginning of the century, pretending to be like that big change and everyone will adopt it. And you realize that the way it came is not the right way. The adoption hasn't been fast, and that's for a reason. So it's like renaming, restructuring itself to adapt to the technology. But we always see BIM as a tool of the massive toolbox of digitalization that the industry needs. And let me ask you first, Matthew. We will jump on the smart building the topics right on in a minute. But first, we're talking about creating smart cities, developing cities, and so on. How technology has affected your job? How you see, like, man, I don't imagine doing this without technology.
Yeah, I think you're right. Absolutely not achievable without. And I think what people expect the technology to be able to do changes, it feels like, almost every day as expectations kind of move along with what we get in good kind of consumer bits of software. We therefore expect our cities and those that govern us to be able to deliver all those sorts of capabilities. So I think at the infrastructural level, it's often to do with connectivity, so that a person or device can connect to something that the city is trying to do. There's then more sort of like kind of basic citizen services, like how you prove who you are and do identity, things around how you exchange value and payments, looking up or being able to access a fundamental kind of government digital service is normally where it starts. And then it grows arms and legs to look at things to do with mobility. So if that's something like an Oyster card or an Octopus card that you can use on mass transit systems, it then looks at how you might be able to deal with waste at the city level, particularly for places that want to work more with the circular economy and deal with some of their sustainability issues, or even down to telling people and giving them real-time information about how healthy it is to be outside right now. And that's pertinent for sure in places like Beijing, where you can have a real detrimental impact to your breathing quality depending on when you go outside. So I think one sort of definition doesn't really exist, and context is everything.
I'm in the deep reflection today. I can say it. Well, the beginning IKEA. Right now, I'm just thinking, when I was born, nobody really thought about air quality in Europe. I can tell you this. So I just think about it. But yeah, wow, how we destroyed the planet over the last 40 years plus. Yeah, wow. Anyway.
Yeah.
No, it's a good thought, Matthew. I think this is really just connecting, and I think that's what you mentioned, really, the connectivity between the different axes and between the different silos is really the elements of making this successful for the smart cities, right? It's great to have their quality, but if you will just not have the impact on for example, the waste management, or if you don't have the impact of transportations, that will be just the silo, right? So I think it's really the interoperability and the connectivity between the different silos. That's really what makes everything work perfectly.
Matthew, as your role as advisory, what are the type of requests or questions that people will ask you to get advice from you in terms of to plan a city, to plan a building, or the impact that you say, how to connect this building or this new development want to make on the city? What is the kind of guidance you provide to them using the technology?
Oh my God, it could be absolutely anything. I know it involves technology as an answer, but it could be stuff like, how do we start to make this building net zero carbon? How could we deliver a workplace that offers an equitable experience for all? How could we reduce the number of sick days that our employees have? How could I deliver a workplace that is for collaboration and everybody feels welcome? Or I don't know. We've had so many sort of different requests that we will, try and come up with a way in which technology could support. One, I think, piece of technology that I'm probably most excited about, although it's probably a bit old, is HVAC analytics. HVAC stands for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, and it's all of the systems that we've put into buildings in order to deliver the right levels of light or temperature comfort, but then we're really rubbish at managing them so that it doesn't take loads of energy in order to get what is often outdoor air temperature anyway in lots of places. So it effectively takes the data that's going through the network on which all those machines are connected, uses some actual engineering calculations to look for places where you might be able to make some efficiencies and therefore save money and reduce the amount of carbon that you're releasing into the atmosphere. I, particularly with the price of energy, don't understand why more companies don't use it. Building management system, which is normally like a PC that sits in the basement of your building, that controls these machines, has got some times and temperatures, and it goes off if there's a problem. But that's really as far as the intelligence goes, when really there should be some proper engineering applied to what the machines are doing. So that's, I think, one of the things I'm most excited about in a minute.
This is quite a wide questions, like people answer machine. I want to deliver a workspace where everyone is comfortable, everyone get less sick, everyone produce better, right? So it's really it's a really wild it's making me my perfect space, right, with the technology. So talking about the smart buildings, we kind of know what smart buildings are. We have here a small definition of them, and I think Internet of Things, the IoT, is a good powerful word on them. And what I always think when I think about the smart buildings is the temperature, like what you said, the temperature control, aircon and heating, that is automatic. So the first thing I heard about smart buildings is I enter to a space and I'm not supposed to be cold or hot. What is else beyond the smart building? Because I'm sure it's not only that, right?
Yeah, and again, it's something I think that's really changed. The definition has evolved over time. I would say back in the early 2010s, when we spoke about smart buildings, it was primarily about energy and energy savings that we did through the lens of corporate social responsibility, CSR, where you would use some sensoring and perhaps some kind of first version of HVAC analytics in order to improve the operational performance of the building. But then that changed following the sort of repercussions of the financial crisis. Rents in particularly commercial buildings, or even for others, to be fair, started to rapidly increase. And WeWork in offices changed the expectation of the amount of space that a person would have. We used to operate buildings at about 23 meters squared per full-time employee. And in some cases with the sort of WeWork model, it would go down to something as low as 6 meters squared. So there were then lots of projects in the mid-2010s that were about space optimization. But I think we made people feel like battery chickens. And because of that, we then, towards the end of the decade, made a lot of the projects about health and well-being, and we would put in sensors around CO2, particulate matter, and other volatile organic compounds that might be in the air. We offered like different types of filtration in air handling systems, and we sort of convinced people that yes, you might be packed in like a battery chicken, but perhaps you're a free-range chicken because we have a sensor. And then obviously the pandemic happened, and that sort of changed what smart buildings were all about. Again, it was about compliance, so that you could prove that places were safe and that they'd been cleaned. We then got really serious about energy again, but this time we call it ESG rather than CSR, and people had their net zero pledges, and that's sort of where technology was looking for a very short amount of time. And now I think we are struggling with what's the point of an office now. We are kind of proven that we can work from home and that the office is a great place to collaborate. But if I just need to like sit and get on with something, I'm not sure that that's like I shouldn't go to the office for that. And we're kind of battling what Microsoft call commuters regret. And so we're looking for ways to basically manage spaces when we don't know who's going to turn up or what they're going to do. So that's tricky. And then finally, how do you deliver like a normal level of like collaboration or even like a sort of community feel when everybody's so transient? And I think that's what we're trying to really work out at the minute.
That's a perfect point, Matthew. I think this is one of the things which I really like in the current debate, you know, and we try to move from the army structure when you have the president with the glass, the corner office, and then you're going the mid managers and lower managers and a little bit lower managers and the workers, and then you just have the building full of people, and each time, you know, you have all of these guys coming in the same hour to the office, and to the something very remote in the really more adapted to our times, especially for the service industry. I'm not talking the factories, etc. But that's something which is interesting. You mentioned a couple of times chicken, so this is great. Just one of the difference between the chicken and the people, I think, is adoption, right? I think the chickens are just quite quicker to adopt. Users are very difficult to adopt. So what's your experience with the smart offices? The user adoption, you have a lot of technology, you have a lot of constraints as well in it. It's just, as you mentioned, you cannot open the door. You cannot. No, you can open the door. You cannot open the window. You can just not have a ventilation, etc., which is, it will be a more synchronized automatically for you. How is the user adoption? Are the people willing to live in kind of like a fully automated offices?
It's a mixed bag, I'd say. I think it's generally more supportive than unsupportive when you roll this sort of stuff out. And normally the level of support is directly proportional to the amount of effort that somebody put in on the communications. I think people can sometimes be a bit concerned about what data is being collected, what's done with it, how it helps. And I think if you just explain to somebody that, that infrared sensor just looks at whether or not like a person is there or not, and it can't tell anymore, then it feels a lot less sinister. I think COVID definitely helped with user adoption. Before the pandemic, if we had apps where you could find colleagues and skills and do like kind of cool bits of collaboration through a mobile app, there was a lot of hesitance around knowing when your location was being tracked or not. But then it's like, oh, there's a government tracking app, sign me up. I think the pandemic kind of broke that for us, which was helpful. And I think the sort of right direction, given how low stakes like the office version of that is.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Just 10 years, 15 years ago, we were just building the new office in Paris. And one of the key elements was also, as you mentioned, the sensors in the conference room. So just we know which time and to moment, if you book the conference room, you need to show up like 10 minutes after the booking. Otherwise, it's just become again available for everybody. And that was really, that brought so big the debate in the team, saying just, you will be watching when I'm entering, and you will know where I am. And wow, that was something which I didn't even expect it coming up this way. Maybe it's different those days, I was shocked by the resistance of as you mentioned, which data are collected, and you cannot even tell the people saying, I don't really care who you are, I just only care about the space. No, you just will know that it's me, because you can just link the data of the reservation of the meeting room and oh my God.
Yeah,
So.
Your paranoia now makes me think that you're doing something you shouldn't be.
Sorry for that.
No, you're doing totally right. It's so that people became like very privacy, but by the data, and then you go to the social media and you can just basically learn about their life in 2 minutes. So it's pretty fun, pretty fun fact that. One question linked to this adaptation I have, Matthew, because I don't know if you guys are using sort of a middleman, let's call it like a facility manager usually on the building, or sort of concierge, or anyone who will be managing the building itself. If I imagine a multiple store building for offices, is he the one you guys deliver the technology for the smart building, and he's the responsible to transfer to the users, or directly you go to the users and you, in a way, you train them or tell them how the building is going to work?
I think it's better if you make it more of like a mass communication for all, so that everybody's got like a baseline understanding of what the space can or can't do. And then you have a different set of systems for somebody that works in a facility manager type role, because they've got to do more of the kind of back of house stuff. If that's to do with maintenance or cleaning, it doesn't affect typically what their experience should feel like, as long as they're doing their job properly, for everybody else.
Wow. And just, I think, again, that was in the beginning was a reflection, IKEA and all of this. Right now, I'm just getting paranoid, as you mentioned. I'm thinking about a security. Imagine that somebody will just shut down all of our ventilation system. I know that's something like, from the Hollywood movies, but in reality, you still can have the future war. It will be more about the shutting down some of the smart cities in the smart way, right? I'm just shutting some of the vital elements of this. How you just try to respond to your clients saying just, that don't worry, just it will be okay, but it's still the risk there, right?
Oh, and I think it's a very real risk, and lots of companies haven't invested anywhere near enough that they had to in the cyber security of their operating networks and things to do with like HVAC, etc. One of the very real things that you could probably do is if you've got a server within a building, again, lock it so that people can't get in and out, crank up the temperatures as much as you can, and maybe you'll start a fire, which could bring down whatever online service that a company relies on for its revenue, not to mention some of the life safety problems that are with it. And so I think organizations have got a lot of work to do in trying to work out what are the sort of access points that somebody could start to fiddle with their system and do kind of naughty things to, and then find ways to close them. I mean, there are already lots of best practices that are out there from the Internet of Things world, but they aren't translated too often into a building context because it's not skills that typically buildings people have. And I think given the way that warfare seems to be going, I think more disruption can be made through systems than perhaps normal physical means.
Exactly. Yeah. No, and just it's not from the war. I remember that this year I had a chance to fly with one of the best European airlines. I will not name the city and the place, but one of the airports went to manual during the like 5 hours or something. That was the disaster. It really just, so you can imagine all of the queuing and just, that was great because they were ready. I'm not saying that was not bad, but it was just when I saw all of these people just running with the papers and the pages and putting the stickers on the paper, which side you take, which seat you take in the plane, etc., was really just impressive. The view of how you really can, in a very quick moments, you can impact it. And that was some fiber which was cut between the main data center and the airport. And of course, the fiber, it should be the two fibers coming from two different sides, but they forgot about it, etc., this kind of things. But wow, that was a great example of you really just one cable can just can change it. And of course, that was a physical harm, but there is not a problem to connect to the router and just do the same thing on the software side as well.
Exactly.
Sorry, just getting on the paranoid side right now. So I'm thinking about the third phase right now.
Fantastic. So let me pull up this slide because I took the tagline, the headline saying through the use of technology, we can create a better place to live. This is something I steal from you, Matthew. Okay, just put it there because I like the sentence and it's pretty direct. And this is what you're trying to do, right? Like making better places to live, to work, to collaborate using the technology. And one of the questions I want to ask you about it is regarding the application, the number of application. We're talking, I imagine the sensor, so you can control it from your phone and everything. Is the facility manager or the concierge of the building or whatever, or the user of the house, does it need to have like 1,000 apps on the phone to one for the blinds, one for the temperature, internet thing, and so on, or everything is less packed in terms of technology you need to use?
I would say the way that these sort of systems are now being put together is to think of it in layers, where it goes from the sort of most physical to the most digital. So you'd start with like your sensors or the devices that are doing things within a place, which will then go to some sort of gateway, which will kind of collect all of the information that's being generated and then send it out to typically a cloud service somewhere, where it's then brought together and stored in a logical or structured way so that you're able to run sort of queries. You then have some applications that then sit on top that turn that data into a meaningful answer that a person can use. And then finally, you might have a user interface that you put in the hands of the people that use a building, if that's like a mobile app to book some space or to find somebody with a particular skill or interest, or to, I don't know, book something that could happen in your block of flats or whatever it is. And so what we're seeing that where I think companies are struggling is that they will buy an off-the-shelf product, which is typically software focused, and they end up with a lot of verticals that don't speak across and therefore you don't get the level of intelligence that you expect, because you have, like you said, bought one application to deal with heat and light, you bought another one to deal with visitors, another one that then looks at the car park, and you don't get this sort of holistic view. And we then also make the user experience really difficult, in that it will therefore like take 3 different applications in order just to work out what you're going to do like that day. So if you got to book your parking space, book your desk, book another meeting room, we've added 3 extra apps that somebody needs to download that they didn't want to, and they just want to say, I'm coming to the office on this day. And really, we should be better at building the workflows that can talk across those different systems. Like, they shouldn't care where the system comes from or what it is in the back end that's doing it. We need to just give them something that like makes sense to what they do. And we forget that because we just want to buy something that's cheap, simple, and quick. And in doing so, we think we've added efficiency. We haven't.
I think you're touching the really important problem of the backbone and the architecture, not in the architecture in the sense of the building itself, but also the technology architecture, which sometimes is not in the current agenda for the architects today. So the architects are just great in designing, etc. But what I'm preaching for all of the last 2 years is just to ask the architects just to get a little bit more technically savvy, just to get a little bit more understanding how the design can impact the technology and how the technology can impact the design. And again, I'm not asking just for the less creativity, but at least understanding and just designing the backbone for all of the parts in the building, which can be very, very useful for the future. But you're completely spot on. You just no, we're doing this again in the small buckets, in the small silos, not in the combined way. But that's strange, to be honest, because the BIM is really just encouraging the collaboration, right? That was one of the modeling part of collaborating between the different levels of the design, the projects, and the execution. So why this thing doesn't work like this?
I think because the design team doesn't get involved, and I don't think normally that this sort of technology is really considered until you kind of get to the end of detailed design. And so the architect, I don't think, has done a very good job in designing the experience that they're being delivered. They can probably do it in an analog way, but then systems get added later that the architect hasn't thought about or didn't know that was going to be added later. The way in which everything's been designed up until the point when you've got to detail didn't account for the software, and it's normally a bit of an afterthought, which is why it's so poorly integrated to like the real world experience when you get there. So I always, try to explain to clients that the earlier you get a role like ours involved, the more likely you are to have something that people actually enjoy. But you can't put a price on enjoyment on the balance sheet.
I think you spotted. Yeah, that's the part.
Let me open here Pandora box, and when I'm interested to this question, this is the point number 4 there, talking about the AI. I'm sure there's so many implementations there. Is it really working on smart buildings already? Is this a prospect there? How can it help to buildings to become more smart or efficient? Maybe I like what you said, like connecting all the verticals layers that we have that they don't communicate by themselves.
Yeah, I think we're making the right steps. The only place where AI is probably properly used is in things like HVAC analytics that uses machine learning across some engineering calculations, because we're good at that. Where we haven't yet started to apply any form of intelligence really is across other use cases. If that's to do with space, productivity, the way people connect and collaborate, walking routes, any kind of use case you can think of. I've not yet seen anything that has any compelling level of intelligence other than this is what has historically happened on anything, basically. But the opportunity is definitely there. And the reason that I think we are capable of getting there is because of all of the work that's been going in across the industry over the past couple of years to standardize the data model and structure for different bits of data within the built environment. So if we've got that as common and we can compare and contrast, then different models or techniques can be brought in so that we can deliver better spaces, but through a software perspective.
Yeah, no, I think just to add on top of it, I think the first part when AI can really will be able to help us really will be energy, right? I think that's the consumption, and that's if I don't know anything about the buildings, etc., I will just bet on this one to see the patterns and to see the way how the consumption works, especially comparing the weather prediction, the temperature, the pattern of the people coming and leaving, and with time, what's time, etc. Right now, as you mentioned, it's a little more hectic in the offices because you have no idea what the pattern we're supposed to use for the offices anymore. Yeah. But
And even
it's
when you have the historical performance, most building owners won't allow the system to make auto corrections simply because they don't trust it.
yeah. No, it's just that's fine. I think that's normal. I think we need just to go, and this is what the European Union is trying to do really, because I had a chance to work with some of the folks from the universities, and one of the things they saying, the models, the learning models, machine learning models are still very I'm not saying not predictable, but they are still, it's difficult to prove how they come up with the same conclusion, right? It's enough that you ask the same question with the space between the letters, and it will just go through the different nodes of learning, and it will give you the different results, right? And so European Union tries just to show that just to prove the predictability models, but it will again take some time just to get there. It will kill some creativity for sure for the guys, but I think that's important. And I will just also just for AI, I will just go for the security as well again once more, to see the patterns, right? It's impossible to go through the logs. It's impossible for go through the all of the things which happening, and this can just give you at least some alerts, yellow, reds, whatever, black, and saying, my God, this is something supposed not to happen, right? That's very unusual, and that can lead to A, B, C, D, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, my hope is we get to a point that is a bit like Downton Abbey. So if I teach my Siri on my phone kind of like everything that I like and want and what my expectations are when I visit somewhere, it will work a bit like a butler that speaks to the in-building butler AI system thing. They have a conversation and just make kind of stuff happen in the same way it would in Downton Abbey.
I'm just hope Siri will not have a bad day one day. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can learn from that too. Let me recall something that Matthew said that I find it very important that for the AI to really help us on that, we need to have this structured data. Otherwise, it cannot really learn from bits and pieces around, right? It's very important. And I'll link it with the design and the BIM. This is one of the questions I have here on the last point of the slide. Not to talk about BIM directly, but do you, Matthew, work usually during the development design phases of buildings when they are already, so you need to coordinate with the team? You said that the scientist is not really involved, but I don't know if with the use of BIM or not, but do you collaborate with the team who are developing the building itself, or do you start to make it the building smart and implement the technology once the structure is already there?
Yeah, very rarely. My teams have collaborated with those doing the BIM. Basically because lots of clients don't want to go to that level of detail as to where the sensors are, but it can be a really helpful record of where we've put certain bits of technology, when it had its firmware last updated, when we expect its warranty to be. Typically when we have collaborated, it's because the client wants to take what they have in BIM and take it through to a digital twin, and therefore expect the smart building system to provide the live element of what goes into a digital twin.
Okay. Well, so not yet, but it will be good, right? So that's what I think. That's what I think. So expect.
Sorry, just Matthew. I just one of the things which don't get it. You guys said this should be the structured data only, because I don't think so, but maybe I missed something.
No, not necessarily. It was I was commending the work that the industry is doing to structure common things in a simple way. Because normally where it goes wrong is the person that commissions your building management system, and they might label things in inconsistent ways. So let's say like a valve could be spelled VAL, VLV, or the whole kind of full spelling, and there's no way to compare and contrast those sorts of things. So folks are looking at methods to standardize.
Yeah, I'm with you. Okay, got it. That's good. Yeah, that's what can be helpful. Yeah, okay. Sorry.
Perfect. And let's go to the last part of the interview structure I prepared for the data analysis processes. For me, this is very important. That's what Matthew has probably is going to really help us a lot to understand. This is how we teach the building, right? How we learn also with the machines. So, and the process of collecting the data, I put the like a data analysis process schema, very, very simple. Just add, remove if you're not agreeing with those, Matthew. But how is the process of collecting all those data, analyzing, studying, and to make a proper decision? Because at the end, that's the ultimate goal, right? Like see what's happening and making the decision.
You know what? I'm not sure that folks that have invested in really good quality smart building systems have ever really thought about it this way. It's very vendor led from clients, in that they might have come up with a sort of standard dashboard or set of parameters that they think are going to do something helpful to a client. But we really have to work closely with clients in order to get them to drive what they're looking for, where the question should be, well, what do you wish you knew about your building or portfolio? And then look across the sort of whole suite of data that you have from your smart building that would help you answer those sorts of questions. Like, should we close the third floor on Mondays and Fridays? Where's the best place to spend money to make somewhere look or feel better? Could be anything. What's the top 10 things we should do to get to net zero? Often I think a lot of that base data exists, but because people haven't been through a process such as this, it all just feels a bit too much and too daunting.
Yeah, no, but it's tough. Sorry, just Enrique, sorry for interrupting, but it's really tough because it's just, when you go through the cycle, you need to really connect so many blocks to get the answers, right? And it's just to go through calculating net zero, and we have the one client which we were just working together for the assessment that they have. I just will just not exaggerate. I have more than 100 systems to collect the data, and of course each system is a different type of it. Each system is a different metrics, different views. Some of them from 60s, some of them 90s, some of them moderns. Some of them they have the printout, some of them don't, some of they just have the sensor, some of they don't, and it's just it's complex like a hell just to build something out of it, to be honest. And I think, I'm not saying that we gave up, but we said, okay, we'll just do this in phases. That's how the consultants usually do, right? So. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if it was easy, we'd have all done it by now, wouldn't we? And net zero would be solved. And I think a lot of the reason for so many people's inaction is because they wait for perfection, which I don't think will ever come. But to get close enough and to say 80%, it's got to be better than not doing anything.
Yeah, I agree. And it's still, even intellectually, it was really complex just to be able just to connect the different words, really, just different worlds and together to make it something out of it. It's and again, I'm just a big believer in information and the building information modeling part, because I think that's really can create the common backbone for exchange. And it doesn't really matter if you have a paper or data, whatever type of data you have, you can still just try to go closer to interconnectivity and exchange of the data. That's this. I hope it will happen one day. Sorry.
It's an amazing place to start from with all the stuff that's in it.
Fantastic. So let's jump to the last topic I present here, and it's using regarding the data process, how the local no-code tools, because I was reading a bit also about your work, Matthew, and I see that, wow, so how do you guys analyze and make also to make sure that you take the proper decision after analyzing the data and reading these local no-code tools? Again, do you really necessarily need to know the programming language, agricultural Python, or just using APIs? It's very easy to understand that data, so you need to get into programming and coding.
Yeah, and these the kind of low code and no code tools excite me, because up until we've had tools such as this, it's been a real barrier to entry for people to do stuff with their building, because otherwise you'd have to learn a programming language, know firstly all of like building engineering and physics, but then also be a programmer and know how to develop a piece of software to run the place as you want it. But having a really nice graphical user interface where you can move some blocks, press some buttons, tie things together to give you an answer or an automation that you're after is brilliant. And that, I think, will be transformative to the way that people run their buildings, in the same way that we can like program simple shortcuts on like the IoT devices in our homes that we get in our apps, or the things that we can do on our operating systems now just for normal consumer devices, to take that level of thinking and ease for the user and put it in a place where operations like have a massive difference will be so transformational.
But to get some benefit of those tools, do the user needs to understand at least the basic of those coding or know a bit about it? Or it's going to become probably in the future completely relevant because, as you said, the interface is going to be so easy to use that you don't need to understand what's behind it.
That would be the hope, yeah, because I think if you then, you're adding more complexity than if you've got to be a coder as well, and then you massively reduce the like talent pool of people that can use the technology to make a building better. So if we can take that complexity off them, let's do it.
Yeah, no, I think it's visible right now, Enrique, and this is what I can see coming from the different world. And I just we looking and we're working also with the Salesforce, which is the big company on the CRM world, and just one of the things which I see really the progressing over the last 20 years. I see right now people who never touch the code, they really can just work with the putting the blocks together. And this is literally the graphic blocks, really saying just, I put this here, so that's my sensor. And then you just, of course, you need to know the name of the sensor, saying, okay, I would like just to have a sensor. Then it asks you, do you have authorization or not? So just it will help you just to guide you through the security part. And you can just say, if my sensor is hot, turn off, and then you put the bulb off, or you just do something. So it's pretty simple. Then you, of course, it looks this is what I said about BIM on the beginning. When we will implement everything, it will disappear, right? So it looks very simple from the graphical perspective, but the whole engine thinks through, how to really convert all of this to zeros and ones. We still haven't have the quantum computing when you have the different dimension of 0 and 1s, but this is something which is pretty complex at the end, and it's still not 100% efficient in my opinion. You still need sometimes tricks to make it work. But yeah, it really looks pretty promising. In the next 5-10 years, I think we will be no more codes anymore, only for the guys who will be building it. So that's what I think.
And consumer tools are so much better. If you use something like if this then that, you could basically like build automation such that every time Elon Musk tweets, my lights will flash red.
Yeah.
All sorts of silly things like that, and it takes no coding.
Okay, that's good. I hope you will not flashing too often, my dear, for you, but that's okay.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
One last question I got for you, Matthew, and from the side will be all. We always experience with the implementation of technology, some people who have reticence and don't want to accept it. We can call it problem of regeneration of people who are not very skillful with the technology. So what would you say to those? Taking again the example, concierge of a city manager or security desk, whoever who doesn't want to. I don't want to do this. I prefer to go and switch off the light by myself. What is the way of thinking? Can you still live with this, or you need to really move forward? How will you convince it to move towards smart building uses?
I think you probably could still live like that. I'm not sure if it's a good idea, and at a certain scale, your skills will no longer be relevant. And so I would basically say, and I think it's more of an industry-wide problem, that our digital education in the built environment just isn't fit for purpose. We have to learn the fundamentals of buildings and cities, and then it's down to the individual once you've actually started working in order to keep abreast of the latest stuff and how things are developing. That's why there are now programs like Smart Building Bootcamp, where you can basically go online and get that sort of sheep dip of all of the sort of basics of what you need to know as a built environment professional that now has to do digital stuff. And I would say, yeah, it's kind of not fair, but it's the world that we live in. Things move very quickly, and keeping abreast of topics and developments in your industry is just a basic fundamental now.
Fantastic. So we're gonna start the music on the background, and that means this is gonna start to finish the interview. If anything else you want to ask, Peter, to our guests, or
it's great, Matthew. It was a pleasure to exchanging about the future. I think we went closer to some understanding for me. I still haven't solved the $1 million question, how we can go quicker in the construction industry. But you know, one day, I hope we'll find the answer for the question. So thank you very much for being with us. Very, very good and smart discussion. Thank you for enlightening us with your point of view about the analytics and the way how the no-code will work.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Matthew, Peter. See you next one. Bye.
Guys, thanks. It was a pleasure.